Is Hyrox all just cardio? How does cardio affect your Hyrox race and how can you improve it? What is happening, people? Woodsy Workout here. I am a competitive Hyrox athlete and coach, and my channel is all about trying to help you improve your health and fitness and make you a better hybrid athlete. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and if there's anything that you want to know that I haven't covered, drop it in the comments. So today we are talking cardio and how it relates to Hyrox. So first things first, what actually is it? Cardiovascular endurance is how well the body's circulatory and respiratory systems can supply oxygen to the body during sustained physical activity. So is Hyrox all just cardio? Well, in a way, yes, the entire race from start to finish requires cardiovascular endurance, but different parts of the race require different levels of strength, muscular endurance, and cardiovascular endurance. I discuss this kind of in more detail in my ebook, Hyrox Training Principles. And in my last video, I went over all of the strength exercises that you can do to improve each station. But your cardiovascular fitness will affect your overall race and can have the biggest impact on your times, because the better your cardiovascular endurance, the longer you can sustain aerobic activity without fatiguing or needing to slow down or stop. So how do we train for it? Well, I'm going to be honest with you, we are all still trying to figure it out, but here's what we know from looking at other endurance sports and by looking at the years of research on heart rate and energy systems. So I'll cover like a real basic overview and then explain how it can apply to Hyrox. So you may have come across training zones. A training zone is simply a range of exertion. The ranges are determined by your heart rate, but they can also be converted into pace or power. And training at different zones creates a different impact on the body. You got zone 1 and 2, which are aerobic, meaning the main fuel source is oxygen, and you can only do that at a low intensity, but you can do it for really long periods of time. So zone 1 promotes recovery through blood flow, and then zone 2 increases endurance and your efficiency to use oxygen and fat as a fuel source. In zones 3 and 4, you start to switch over to your anaerobic system. So at a higher intensity, your body uses glycogen instead of fat as a fuel source to produce energy. So this produces more energy, but it creates byproducts which your body has to clear. So you can't maintain this for as long because you're limited by your carbohydrate stores and how quickly you can clear lactate. And so eventually you will have to switch back to using your aerobic system, and therefore your pace will slow down. So training in zone 3 and 4 allows you to practice the speed and race paces, and it increases your efficiency to clear lactate and work under fatigue. The top zone is zone 5. This is when your heart and respiratory system is working at their maximum capacity. It's purely glycolytic, so using just glycogen, meaning you will fatigue very quickly, and you will only be able to hold that intensity for a few minutes. This zone trains your neuromuscular system, and the benefit is your body learns how to utilize those muscle fibers at a very high rate. Most smartwatches and heart rate monitors will kind of predict your zones, and if you go online you can read some descriptions on how each zone should feel, and then you can train based on feeling. But if you want to be really accurate, you can do a VO2 max test, which I done a couple of years ago. It outlines exactly where your zones are, and I'm actually going to do one next week to see if that's changed, so I'll try and share that with you guys. But anyway, those are the zones, but now we need to work out how long we should be spending in each zone and what those workouts might look like. There is no real perfect training week. In order to gain the benefits from each zone, your training should be periodized. So if we look at like elite triathletes, they do seasons of training. They do long course where they'll do a lot of volume at a low intensity, and then a season of short course where they cut the volume down but they increase the intensity. Hyrox is very similar to short course triathlon racing. So in fact, actually the sprint distance triathlons match Hyrox solo times. The best, very best finish in around 55 minutes. And a good time is like under an hour 15. Average time is around an hour and a half. So they're really similar in that time domain. So we can learn from them by doing periods of long, low intensity, which, you know, it may be a good time to try different races like a half marathon or a long Spartan race or something like that. And then do periods of high intensity training where you're doing high intensity training and maybe one or more Hyrox races. So I'll go over some examples of how you can do that. But if you want more guidance on how to include these methods correctly in a program, you can go to coactiveperformance.com, where I have training plans and coaching options available to you. Now, starting with zone 2 training, think of this as your base. The bigger your base, the bigger your potential peak. So it allows you to develop your running because you can run for long periods of time, spending more time on your feet, and that will increase your capillary density in the working muscles, so that when we do ramp things up, you'll be better at sending blood to those areas. You want to put more zone 2 training early on in your program, and you can also use it in between high intensity sessions or strength sessions to give your body time to recover whilst it works a different system. So zone 2 workouts, they work well on their own as like a long, easy run. If you're new to running, you might find it difficult to stay at that zone 2 pace. Your heart rate might climb really quickly. So you can do periods of running and then periods of walking, or you can do cycling or swimming, which tend to naturally you'll be at a lower heart rate. But it works best with repetitive monostructural movements, so running, rowing, skiing. It doesn't work well with the other Hyrox stations because they are more muscular demanding, so it's really hard to do them for long periods of time. Trust me, I've done the 1,000-meter burpee broad jumps, and I wouldn't want to do that every single week. You can add some zone 2 training in your speed workouts as like a warm-up and a cool-down, but I would avoid putting them too close to your strength sessions because they can cause what's known as like the interference effect, whereby the signals that you're sending the body through strength training and then cardiovascular endurance training, they compete, so your body doesn't do a very good job at adapting to either. So keep your zone 2 training and your strength sessions at least 3 hours apart. Make sure you're fueling well and you're well rested in between them. So zone 2 is great for all of those reasons, but when it comes to your race, you're not actually going to be racing at a zone 2 pace. So you're going to be more like a zone 3 or 4. So we want to integrate those paces more and more as we get closer to your race. Obviously, zone 3 and 4 are going to feel harder because it's at a higher intensity and it's also more demanding on the body. So it's best to build up that volume with intervals, beginning with shorter intervals and stretching them out as your training block continues. With running workouts, some staples that I use are like 80 seconds at threshold pace. So that would be like your zone 4, and then 40 seconds at an easy pace. So zone 2, and then repeat that for 30 or 40 minutes. Then you might progress to doing a mile or 2 kilometer efforts with some light jogging recovery. In the gym, I like to do some of the Hyrox movements that really increase your heart rate. So burpees, wall balls, and sled push. I would do those at like a race pace, and then I would put a row or a ski or a run in between those at a steady pace. And then again, as you get closer to competition, you can start to do full workouts. So where you would stay at a zone 3 or 4 pace for long periods of time. So like a half Hyrox simulation or a 10K run for time. Zone 5 is normally used to give athletes that ability to make a finishing kick or surge ahead at certain points of the race. And it's commonly used more for competitive athletes that are racing against each other rather than like if you're going for a time. But I believe that there are certain points in a Hyrox race where you need that extra gear, particularly on the stations where in some instances it might be better to almost overreach to gain momentum and then recover afterwards than it will be to kind of stay at that lower intensity and grind it out. For example, on the sled push, you may not be able to actually move the sled at a sort of medium effort. For a lot of people, it takes a high intensity effort just to move the thing. And if you try to kind of slow it down and just push it continuously and slowly, you increase the amount of time your body is under tension. So think of it like if you're trying to ride up a steep hill on a bike, sometimes it's better to power up with speed and then recover at the top than it is to kind of go in a really low gear and just chip away at it. So for those reasons, I think incorporating a few zone 5 intervals into your training is important. For those, you need to be between 3 and 5 minutes of very hard work with about an equal rest duration. So for example, 800 meters or 1,200 meters of running or rowing or skiing with about 3 to 4 minutes recovery, or like max burpee broad jumps or max wall balls within 5 minutes. And I will sometimes put these on quality run days or at the end of a strength session. And when you do try to do these, try and do some form of very light activity afterwards. So like a walk or a jog or a cycle, and that way we're training the system's ability to recover on the go, because that's what we're doing in a Hyrox race. We're never really stopping. We're always on the go. So hopefully that's given you some insight into cardiovascular training for Hyrox. In the next video, I'll be diving deeper into the cardiovascular system, because I'm doing some testing and training at a simulated altitude at the Altitude Center in London. So subscribe to stay up to date with the latest videos. And once again, if you want more guidance on how to incorporate cardio into your training, go to coactiveperformance.com, where I have training plans and coaching options available to you. Anything else, you can reach me on Instagram at WoodsyWorkout, where you can find plenty more tips and tricks on all things health and fitness. Until next time, peace.